people always say the end product, as you said in the beginning. I am telling you, came here, went to Talbot House. Um, and when I went to the Talbot House, it was a 93-day program. Now, how do you get better in 93 days? I don't know. But what I realized is that it wasn't about the 93 days. It was about what was I going to do in those 93 days. Mm-hmm. And I remember finding a counselor talking about healing the child within me, healing my trauma, healing my wounds, beginning to look at my life in a different perspective. I remember not knowing what would be my next steps. I had never really had a real job. I'm 33 years old. I had never had a legal job. All my jobs throughout my life were criminal jobs, so I had never had one. And my first job was at Fisher's, the restaurant. I remember going in and telling them that I was an ex-thief and that I shouldn't probably go in the cash register because I wasn't sure.
You didn't trust yourself.
I didn't trust myself. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't sure. So I think change comes in with being honest. Mm-hmm. And so I remember the person, his name was Dave, and he said that what he admired about me most was that I was honest. I said, because, honey, I might steal that money out of that cashier, and I'll probably be right back in the penitentiary. And I really don't want to go back to jail. And so he made me a host. And I remember it's right there on 4th Street, downtown. And it was just so amazing how he worked with me. And so that was my first job. And then I got a promotion, and they let me become, finally he came to me probably about 7 months later into the job, and he said, what do you think? You think you're ready to be maybe not a full cashier, but just through lunch hour? And he let me become a cashier through the lunch hour. And that was a gradual process to show me that I could begin to trust that I wanted something different. And in that moment, I realized that I could be a productive, whatever that meant, meaningful, purposeful person in this community. And from there, I went to nursing school and got my certification for nursing assistant, got a real job. I remember making $10 an hour. I was like, I was rich. And it was honest. I met my husband of now almost 26 years. My son, let me just tell you this story. I had not seen my son for about 5.5 years. I didn't know where he was because his father had taken him and took custody and told me I would never see him again. So on my wedding day, a knock came on the door in the dressing room where I was getting dressed. And just to give you a little more backstory, I ended up getting into the Fellowship of Christ Emmanuel Christian Fellowship with Bishop Michael E. Dantley. And I was going to catechism classes, learning spiritual truths, going through a self-help group, which is NA and AA. I was just doing whatever I needed to do. I was eating up everything because I knew that I needed to invest in myself. Right. And so Bishop Dantley told me to pray for my son's father's heart. I was like, boy, pray for somebody. He need to do the right thing. And he said, no, you need to just pray for him. And so that was probably April of that same year of 93. I got married in October. And on October the 23rd of 1993, a knock came on the door of my dressing room when I was getting married. And they asked me to open the door, and I wouldn't. And finally, they persistently asked me. I opened it, and there stood my 9-year-old son that I had not seen in 5.5 years. That let me know that prayer works. And that let me know that there's a God out there bigger than me that hears me, that knows my intent, and he can answer it by way of other people's hearts. That's how he moves. And so from there, I just began to go through the process, and probably about 2 more years after that is when I got the vision of having the courage to change, that is now the Ministry of City Gospel Mission. And I realized that I wanted, not in a good way, wanted to help other people. I'm not going to say that I just totally jumped in there, right. I want to help. No, because I didn't know if that was going to be something that was going to pull me back into behaviors that I didn't know if I was really truly finished with. Right. And so I remember when God invited me on that journey, And he said, you have the tools inside of you to help other people find the light if you'll let me lead you through. And I was like, oh, no, I don't want to fool with them people. If they anything like me, I don't want to fool with them. And long story short, eventually I said yes. And I started the home, and my husband and our first home that we had, we brought 5 unrelated women into our home, and we started living with them and loving on them and caring for them to get them out of the streets, out of prison, off of drugs. And from there, City Gospel Mission saw what we were doing, and then they came and asked would we be willing to join forces with them. And from there, we have been doing that ever since. And so we started with 5 unrelated women. We now have 51 women we can serve at one time. We have 51 men we can serve at one time. God has blessed me to write a book called Breaking the Cycle of Self-Abuse. It navigates my story from beginning to end. It has a workbook in it. I have another book called Unlocking the Incarcerated Mind. It's a yearly devotion that I'm getting ready to really dive into and work on and get out there. But primarily, I have a play that they just did at the Aronoff Center with my story called Chameleon. And it journals my story. It's a one-woman's play. We're going to be bringing that back up again. It's just that I got a big major campaign that I'm getting ready to work on for City Gospel Mission to actually expand the women's program, because I believe that as the opiate epidemic and the brokenness continues to happen, as prison reform is coming down, you have to be prepared for the people. And I think too often what we do is we wait till it happens and then we're not prepared. Well, I'm preparing as I wait for it to happen.
That's beautiful and smart. Beautiful and smart, because people don't think like that. They really don't.
Yeah.
They, as you said, they wait till it happens. They're like, oh, we should probably do something.
Yeah, but so I'm preparing for it before it happens, because I'm kind of like always praying, because I know prayer works, and I'm always asking God what's next. I'm always saying what is the signs of the times? What are we in? But I realize that right now we're in just a community of people that are broken. I think we look at scarcity and we think that there's not going to be enough for us. So we're all selfish sometimes, including me. I'm learning that selfishness comes in many forms. And so we have to decide and ask our question. I was just the other day, I was eating some donuts, which I don't eat a lot of sweets, but I was eating the first one and it was delicious. And I got ready to reach for the second one. And I stopped myself and I said, why am I eating this? What's going on inside of me that's eating me, that makes me get off of what I know is best? You know, I know that I should not eat 2 big donuts behind each other. There's nothing wrong with one, but why am I eating the second one? Right. And I realized that the reason I was eating it is because I'm faced with a lot of self-development, a lot of internal choices that, you know what, and the donut is not going to change those choices. So I said to myself, but I'm going to eat this donut anyway because I want to. And I did. And then I said, but I won't eat one tomorrow. Right. And I've learned that you have to stop and ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? How is this affecting? What is really eating me? What's going on with me? What am I running from? What am I trying to fix? What am I trying to numb? What am I trying to discover? You know, any of those things. And it can be shopping. It can be drinking. It can be spending. It can be all kind of things. So I'm just learning in this season, my life, is that I want to know why I do what I do. And be aware. I want to be awakened to everything. I want to be considerate. I want to have empathy for other people. These are all new tools. People think, I'm 59. I tell people, I say, but these are tools that I am just learning, where my development stops. See, people think just because you grow up chronologically, if you don't grow up emotionally and developmentally, wherever it happens, wherever the trauma happens, wherever you stop growing or developing, you got to go back there and reconnect to those things and regrow up again. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Stick to it. It's amazing. Well, you're like, wait, can you help me out? Really? I'm thinking like, oh. It's amazing. But you said you realized you had to understand the truth and be truthful with people to get help.
Yeah.
for people to understand where you're coming from, to move on. For those who are scared of their own truth, scared to reach out to you, to the City Gospel Mission, what do you have to say to them to just take that leap? How can they take that leap?
I think people have to take that leap primarily by way of saying, am I in enough pain where I am to want to find comfort for where I need to be? I'm gonna tell you a story. I just heard this today on something I was listening to, and it was a dog, and he was laying on a nail, and the dog was moaning like, it was just kind of like whining. And so a man walked up and said, "Is something wrong with your dog, sir?" And he's like, "Yeah, he's laying on a nail." He said, "Well, why don't he get up?" He said, "It ain't painful enough yet." See, he said when he gets painful enough, he'll move. Right now, he's only in the moaning stage. I think most of us are just in the moaning and the complaining stage. When the pain gets great enough, we'll get up and move. For me, the pain was great enough. And I didn't even know it, but it was. So I got up and I moved out of the bed of affliction that I was in. And I began to try to look at where I needed to be. And I continue to do that 27 years later. When the pain gets too great, people move. But if they don't want to, then they will die in the pain they're in. So I would just encourage people to look at the level of pain they're in. Is the pain worth where you are?
Right.
Are you willing to do something else different to get some different outcome? They say if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we always got. If we always be who we always are, we always become who we are. We have to do something different. So I would encourage people to take the risk, because is it any different than the pain you're already in? They said we were born with two fears. One of loud noise and the other of falling. All the other fears we have, we created them or we experienced them. So I'm just saying, if we already know how to navigate loud noises and we already navigate falling, what else is there to do? You've already fallen down. Just learn how to get back up and ask of someone else to reach down and help you and steady your feet until you can walk on your own.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
To Ms. Bowman, Lucretia Bowman from the City Gospel Mission. How can people reach out for those who are ready to get back up?
I think that they can reach out by calling us at 345-1020. That's our main number. They can also call us at 345-1094. They can also reach out on our website, and which is our website is www.
Three W's.
Three W's. citygospelmission.org.
Okay.
So our website, if you just Google with all the technology, City Gospel Mission, it'll tell you all of our information. But I'm just asking you, if you are in pain, I'm asking you to please consider to move out of the position you're in so you can get another one.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This has been the Uncut TropHouse part.